Hey there, Fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. I'm Mark Francis, once again, your host for today. I'm excited to have a number of people here. And I don't know if you guys experienced last episode of the entire Van Drunen family. You guys are much better looking than Van Drunen family and their kids. And that it was special. So if you guys didn't see that episode or listen to it, go back. And actually, that was part of the
context is key. There.
That was part of the Global Church podcast, but not the Fellowship family. But I'm just spotlighting all of them. It's exciting. But I have with me Karen and Scott Santmier and Josh Wyckoff. How are you guys?
Howdy.
Good.
Great.
Good. Well, I will give a little bit of context and setup. We are going to dive into local outreach here in our conversation. And Scott, you're the pastor of local outreach, hence why you're here today.
Yeah.
And give us a little bit of a background of what we're going to talk about today. And it's a mentorship program here in our local school systems. So back us up a year, two, several, to how we've built relationships here with the local school systems.
Yeah, so we'll actually back up about 7 or 8 years. And the local outreach team decided instead of thinning ourselves out and being very widely spread, that we would find a space in our community that needed the most help. So after some research and a lot of prayer, we decided on the Quarles School District at the time. It was the poorest school district in the area, and in fact, at the time, it was the poorest school district in all of Virginia. So we started off by meeting with the administration there and asking, so what can we do? How can we be a part? How can we help? And at the time, they weren't even sure. They were so overwhelmed. There wasn't a clear direction. So I started off by offering that I would just do a reading group, that I would meet with kids and we would read together. And that was the very kind of kickoff of it all. And it evolved to being a mentoring program, a mentoring partnership with Quarles specifically. And we started there, and then slowly but surely we moved into other schools. Some of that was organic, where we'd actually have kids move to another school district and their mentor would follow them there. So that was some of the very beginnings of how the mentoring
Instantly, I think of
happened.
the idea of a public school system and not being very accommodating to religion or God or people from church. So what did those conversations look like early on when a church pastor is coming to them saying, let me help? Where did you receive kind of some obstacles and walls, or was it very open-ended and received well? And what do those challenges look like?
Yeah, there's always going to be obstacles, just because of who we are and stepping into a very public space. So there were some opposition, but most of that was quieted in a way that we presented. These are the steps we want to take in the school system. We're not here to proselytize. We're not here to be overtly, open about the gospel. So we're there quietly, representing Christ, and in that space, we found many opportunities to serve those folks, not only the students, the mentors or the mentees, but also teachers and administrative staff as well. So the Lord opens doors and allows us to do that, and we've seen that work.
And Karen, were you part of the process early on with Scott? What did that look like from your end?
So I was excited about it from the very beginning. I did prayer walking with him around Quarles. I did not mentor the first year. He actually told me I couldn't. I was in a busy space of life, and he said, I don't think this is a good time. But then the following year, I started mentoring, and I have mentored the same young lady since she was in 3rd grade, and she's now going into 10th grade at Henley.
Wow.
So that's been really fun to see her grow up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So what does it look like of having a child assigned to you? What's the process that the schools go through was the criteria of saying, yeah, I think you should meet with this student?
So the students are chosen by their teachers. The guidance counselors kind of put out an all call of, we have some mentors. Who in your class would you think needs a mentor? So they put those names forward, and then the parents have to sign off. And they know that we're from Fellowship Bible Church. So they know right off the top their child's mentee is coming from a church, and they sign off on that. Then I typically will meet with the guidance counselors and sometimes a teacher and figure out a little bit more about this child, and knowing who is in our roster of mentors, try to kind of go, okay, this kid and this mentor may be our best bet. And then we have a first meeting day where mentor comes to school and they meet their mentee for the first time, and lots of questions, lots of stops and starts, and it's a brand new thing for everybody.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm thinking back to my own days of being in college, and when in my college town, people approached me and said, "Hey, would you want to go do this?" And I met with the kid for a couple years, and just the neat atmosphere that you go in, and they're excited to see you when you arrive, and you have just questions to ask. How's your week been? And you're just talking about things, or you're reading a book together. Like, at least for me in that system, it was a neat experience, because they're like, oh, this is a college student who's coming to talk with me. And there's just that excitement that you can get. So Josh, I'll come your way. I mean, you've had this experience as well. And before you talk about the mentorship experience, just what's your involvement with the local outreach ministry here at FBC?
No, it's fun, as Scott described that. It really was. It seems like so long ago, and yet, just yesterday. Yeah, when it started, I'm on the local outreach team with Scott, and just seeing the first couple years of mentor training and getting involved in the school, and I wasn't mentoring at that time. I was kind of just witnessing it, kind of just in a way just really challenged by it. Like, why am I not doing this?
Yeah,
like,
right.
I have like no excuse, like pretty much another guy on our team was doing it, and it's like every story you hear, like every excuse of like your busy life is just like, first of all, like I'm on the team, that's number one, and then second of all, it's just like, no, I could fit that in. But then the crutch of it was just like, these lives are like being like, just hearing like the exchange between the mentees and the mentors, and just like these little impacts and stuff, and kind of hearing just the broken world we're living in of the home life, a lot of these kids, and how it doesn't take just showing up. And I was like, oh, I could just show up. Anyone can just show up. We'll go from there. But yeah, so it was really, I kind of jumped on it from the wave was already going. So I already saw, Scott already figured it out. Like before, I remember actually it was when we went to, it wasn't the school board, but it was like a group meeting. Superintendent was there, and there's like basic questions, and like there's a couple people who had questions about it that were, I think they were teachers on staff. This is general idea of, I think it was going from quarrels to just more in the school system, that type of conversation, that meeting. And like everyone was like, this is amazing, like we need to do it, and like just back Scott. It was so fun to kind of watch. He presented it, and like he said, like he just kind of he built a really good plan. The first couple of years of the plan were exactly as he suggested. We weren't trying to undermine anyone, and we're just there to love on people and show up. And the teachers got that. You could see everyone was like, yeah, like we need this everywhere, which was so awesome. That's
a cool story to emphasize. Yeah. So go back to what happened there, because we initially started just to be at the Quarles Elementary School, right? And there was a moment where the school systems recognized the value, and you approached them to say, what else do you need? And how did God work through that moment there, where now we're invested in every school in the city, correct?
Yeah, so that it happened slowly, but the biggest part was that we kept showing up. There had been other mentoring type programs in the past that would start, but then within the year they would stop. So we had some longevity going there, and we were able to, it was great information that the guidance counselors were kind of keeping track of. The students that were being mentored, a lot of them had really poor attendance, but we could see that they were actually showing up a little bit more. They typically had more, time spent in the principal's office, and that slowed down. So there was some statistical data that they could kind of go, well, the only thing different is that this kid now has a mentor. So that's how it kind of blossomed to, could this be something that we would do citywide or system-wide? And so they approached us. It wasn't us approaching them to go system-wide, but they approached us with that. So then we walked through those doors.
How long ago was that?
It was 4 years ago. It'll be 4 years.
So right around the COVID period.
Yeah, that was a really interesting time too, because everything just kind of came to a halt. Some of the mentors actually became pen pals. So they wrote back and forth, and so that was another, you kind of do what you have to do in those situations. But it continued on, and we picked right back up when the school system started up again. That was difficult because if one child in a classroom came down with COVID, they sent the whole classroom home.
Yeah.
And then they were gone for a week and a half, and then they'd come back. So there was lots of...
That's cool, though, because there's a disruption to the regularity and the routine that I'm sure these students were looking forward to and looking forward with that consistency.
Sure.
And so to have at least some interaction in the pen pal concept of still meeting.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that the kids like most is the consistency, because most of them are coming from homes where consistency is the last thing they have. In fact, it's so unusual that is one of the things that they point out is, these kids are looking for you on Tuesday at lunch, and they're looking out for that.
If you're not there, I mean, that's a big deal in their world.
It is.
Yeah. So now that we're in the post-COVID era and we're able to meet more regularly, Karen, just walk us through kind of what is a typical time, a mentorship session look like when you arrive? Kind of what does it look like? Just parking from the parking lot on, like walk us through kind of what that looked like.
I'll tell you a typical, and then I'll tell you my typical.
Okay.
A typical is from the moment you walk in, you go get your name tag at the front office, and they greet you, depending on the school, very warmly and welcomingly. Not always, so don't assume that that's going to happen. But, and then you greet your child. And for me, at the early years, her teacher wanted me to do reading with her. So we would read, we would do, I would even bring in cookies that I had baked because my mentee really liked baking but didn't get to do it. So I would bake cookies and then bring icing and decorations, and she would do that like over special occasions and then share them with her class. But most of the time for us, more recent years, is playing games. And that has been really good because it teaches taking turns and working together and not cheating. That's a big one. But it has been really good. And there have been days as she has grown up that I feel like she doesn't want me there, but when I ask her if she wants me there, she does. And I'll come home kind of feeling deflated, and Scott reminds me, you showed up. And that's the important thing because in her life, she's from a broken home, and she is back and forth, and she doesn't have consistency. So, but for me, COVID changed things because there was this big silence. I didn't have the pen pal thing going, and I wasn't quite sure where to go with her. And one day at Walmart in masks, I saw her and her mom. And so I introduced myself to her mother, and we went through that and said, could we get together at a park with, her mother there? And so we did that. And from then on, she said, I'm really fine with you picking up Clea, which is a golden rule of not doing. But Scott said we're in different times at that point, and her mother was fine with it. And we have had a really great relationship where I have picked her up from here on out. So I actually don't go to the school. I'm hoping to get back into the school with her next year. I think it would be good to do that. She really likes me picking her up, but part of that involves cookout, milkshakes, and she enjoys that. But the game time and crafts, I mean, cookout, it's been fun even to be in that atmosphere, because we've had workers at cookout come up to me, like if she's in the restroom, and say, I don't know what's going on, but I really love to see you doing crafts and painting and doing games. And it's just been kind of neat, and it's just been a sweet relationship.
So what's the regularity of, or at least the expectation of how often you show up?
It's once a week, and we look for about an hour. Some students, their schedules allow that a whole lot more than others. And then we've had other mentors who just love being there, and they'll hang out for a couple hours, and they will volunteer in the classroom, not that they're asked to, but they just enjoy it.
Are there certain times of the day that the schools are looking for a mentor, or is it based on the student's schedule?
Their schedule is pretty much the same every day. And specifically at Quarles, they have a whole different schedule where they go on a recess every hour. They'll have a 15-minute recess. So they go to recess a lot. But they have found that really helps get those wiggles out, and they can get to work, and they can get those things done. But typically it's over lunch, and either before or after lunch they'll typically have an open time, so you can combine those and usually get that hour in there like that.
So what, over the years, all you guys have years of experience doing this. I'm sure you've seen the ups and downs, even Karen, like you said, kind of good days and bad days. How have you seen God through that process for yourself personally, and then also for the student on the other end? Because you're not necessarily diving into, it's not Bible study time. We're not talking about Jesus that much and getting too much of gospel presentation, but you're building relationships. So how have you seen God work in your life and in the student's life? Josh, I'll look at you first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is, you're showing up for the right to hear their story. And for mine, I mean, I've done it for 4 years, and it's been with 4 different young men, When I say young, no one was older than 8, from 6, 7, 8 year olds.
Boys, sure.
Boys, and they are boys, that's for sure. But it's, with every one of them, about halfway through the year, they'll just drop a bomb about their life in passing, and you're able to follow up on that comment throughout the rest of the year. Just check in with them, like what, from family relatives dying to one of them I found out a parent was in prison I didn't know about, and so it's just things like that you're able just to wait for that to to come out, and that's an honor in a big way. For me personally, oh man, you just hug your kids when you get home. You're just such a grateful. Think about your own family. It's just the love of the Lord in my own life, and so that is the appreciation that I have for just knowing the love of God. It's just so much deeper after those, and so yeah, I think that's kind of a good summary of it. Yeah, so it really does. It just takes time, and it just comes out. It's getting to know these kids.
Scott, how about you?
Yeah, so you learn early on that just being a mentor, you don't have to be in charge. You don't have to make them do homework or chores at home. You don't have to, and that's totally different for this kid to have an adult in their lives that they don't have to somehow interact as a subordinate. You're just their friend, and being their friend is one of those things that you learn how to, what are their ups and downs, their highs, their lows, and you're able to come alongside them in those things. This past year, my mentee, and he's just a fun-loving kid, and all everybody just really enjoys him, but home life is destroyed. So being able to just listen and nod and talk about things like was that an honest thing to do, and it's those just asking those kind of questions, and he goes, well, I guess not. and you're able to bring about some biblical principles in their lives, and for them to think through it a little bit, which is to see them catch truth and kind of latch onto it and understand it is a I don't know, to me it's a bright spot of wow, truth is truth, and it's God's truth, even when they don't know it, but it is, and so that's kind of a fun to see thing.
Karen, what have you learned?
I've certainly been
this?
Stretched. I feel like the Lord has just stretched me. I've always been around kids and children, and so this has been different in a whole different economic group of child, and family. Her background is certainly totally different than anything I ever had or I've been around. And when I first went to pick her up, I will admit I was a bit nervous because I was in a whole different part of Winchester than I'd ever been. And I called Scott before getting out of the car, and he was like, "It's just poverty. It doesn't mean it's a bad, but I think we so often equivocate some of these things with, and so God has really stretched me in a lot of it. And, but I've just learned what it looks like to love her where she's at, not to be her savior, but to love her and care for her, and on her birthday, remind her that she is very loved. And because I am outside of the system, I've been able to I have given her a Bible, and we've talked through that. We don't do Bible studies, and I ask questions until I'm shut down, and I don't push any further. I try to have more kind of like what he was alluding to, those virtue questions, and we've had some good questions like that, and reminding her that I'm always available. I do not have her cell phone. I have put limits up, but I have her mother's, and so I always tell her if at any point, But so God has just really stretched me in my thinking and how to love people very, very different than me, but they're all someone that He's created.
Yeah.
And that need Him.
Exactly. Yeah, and so do their parents and their families and whatever. We don't even know the impact of what a comment or relationship brings to their home.
Yes.
So we're hearing some of the stats of less principal office visits,
Right.
And so hearing some of those stories is super encouraging to know what we can see, but what we can't see until we get to heaven, just the eternal impact and the multiplicity of it can just go on for hours, I'm sure. So when we see kind of the next steps in this ministry, how many mentors do we have, and how many school systems are there, and what is the schools looking for from us as a church? If they're coming to us saying, man, we could use this, it's working, what are the next steps for us here at FBC?
We could have countless mentors. I really believe that. And we've had as many as, I think 54 was our highest number at one point. But yeah, we could have countless. And the reason being is that there are 4 elementary schools in Winchester, and there is an intermediate, a middle school, and a high school. We're finding greater success in starting younger, and then kind of allowing that child's mentor to kind of follow them through the school system. When we've planted mentors right into middle school, those middle schoolers, it's interesting. They go, well, I don't know how much I like these people. Yeah. They have much more of an opinion in middle school than they do in elementary school. So we're finding better success in starting younger. But there are, probably hundreds of students who could use a mentor.
So if God is tapping you on the shoulder right now and saying, what God did to Josh, even, of why am I not doing this? What are the next steps?
So we have a training. That's one of the things that is, so we don't want to just send you out there and you have no idea what to do. So we have a training, and that's coming up in the next couple of weeks. That'd be the first thing. And people can sign up for that on our website at fbcva.org/outreach or local outreach, and that'll take you to the top page where there's a mentoring space, so you can click there to sign up and be a part of that training.
Give us a snapshot of what the training is. So why do I need training?
It's pretty broad, and I tell people there are 2 weeks to training. The first week is a lot of legalese, things we just have to say so that we can be in the school system. Child Protective Services comes and they give us some training on being, of looking out for those students, being a mandated reporter. So that first week is kind of a lot of technical things. Second week is a lot more of kind of hands-on, of like Karen mentioned a little earlier about setting boundaries. What are some of the boundaries you're going to set before you step in there? How much, how far, how wide, how high are boundaries that you're going to put in there? It's always easier to think those things through first. Conversation starters. How do you start a conversation with an 8-year-old boy? What are the things that they want to talk about, besides dirt and bugs? What are those things that they're going to, so how to start that thing? Because it's your responsibility to lead the relationship. You're the adult, so you need to do that. So we talk about a lot of those things, a lot of hands-on things in that second week. It's really just gives you some handles to be in there. It's until you actually step in those doors of the school and meet with that mentee, you'll think, oh, what I really needed to know was this. But we'll give as broad of a scope of ideas and thinking of what it looks like for that.
So the training occurs here pretty soon, right around the corner.
Yes.
And then obviously we'd be shooting to start when the school's open, and the commitment level is. I'll let you say it. Yep.
An hour a week through the school year. So we look at it 1 year at a time. So we want folks to commit to that 1 hour a week throughout the school year. And our hope is that they continue on. And Karen is our longest running mentor.
Yep.
We have a number who have been doing it 4, 5, 6 years. So that's a really neat thing as well. But yeah, our hope that first year, to spend an hour a week, that's what we're hoping for.
How cool would it be when you get to the graduation?
I know.
Just to be able to say you've been there since it would be 9 years essentially for that to happen.
We've talked about it a little bit. I went to her softball game this year and took pictures and sent them to her mom, who had to be at work and couldn't be at the game. And I don't know how many games her mom did go to, but she was very appreciative. And just seeing those kind of milestones and my mentee was very happy that I was there.
Yeah.
It was nice to see. So yeah, it is exciting. It's exciting to see how God can use those kinds of things. And I just I was thinking that, there will be weeks that maybe you're on vacation, and it's okay to take a break and to let the teacher know and your mentee know that you're going to be gone. And that shouldn't keep you from signing up. But the longevity is just the year commitment, because it's important for the kids, and there will be hard days. So there might be someone listening who has mentored and says, I have not had some of those experiences. They're not always happy to see me, and I've talked to people like that, and it is like that sometimes. You kind of feel like, why am I here? But ultimately we're there to love, to be obedient to what God has called us to do, and to love another child who is in desperate need of knowing Jesus.
Yeah, that's perfect way to end, because I feel like that God is doing a work here, and it's just so cool to see one little step at a time in the growth of how we can make an impact in our community.
Yes.
And just point people to Christ in a loving and just non-threatening way. And so God can use any one of us to be able to do that. And just a little hour of your week, right?
Exactly.
And
right?
you can be a superhero on the playground.
Yeah,
you
you
can
can.
be.
Year, I was first pick for soccer every time. Right?
Awesome.
It was awesome. So live vicariously through that thought.
There you go.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Well, Josh, Scott, Karen, thanks so much for being here. And again, go to the website that Scott was sharing to register for the training class so you can go to both of those sessions and learn more about what it looks like and how you can be involved. We'll put that link there in the show notes as well. So for all of you guys watching and listening, I hope you were able to be inspired and encouraged and see what God is doing here at FBC. And remember, we mentioned this in the top of the episode as well, that there's other podcasts here at FBC, the Global Church one, where you can see the Van Drunen family more recently. There's the Sermon Spotlight. There's also, you can connect to the actual sermons if you miss a service. So go to those different platforms where you can learn about what's happening here at FBC and hear what God is doing around our church and around the world. So thank you guys for participating. Send your thoughts, send your questions. We'd love to hear back from you as well. And let's look forward to see what God does this coming school year here with all of us here as mentors. So until we chat again, let's let Christ be the focus of our lives each and every day.